It is official. Redfin has said it. The buyer has all the power today. I don't think the average buyer who's only been doing this for, a couple of months or a couple of years understands how much power the buyer has today. So, Stephen, you're the guest. What's the first thing you think of? Alrighty, folks, it is official. Redfin has said it, so it must be true. The buyer has all the power today. So we're going to talk to the one and only Mr. Stephen Dow from Velocity Mortgage about all the ways buyers can get great deals. But before we do that, we must do the marketing thing so we both don't get in trouble. Go for it.
Thank you for remembering, sir. And thank you for having me back on the channel. Although, again, I work very happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital. All the ideas and topics discussed on this channel are that of my own. So let's get it going.
So when I think about all the ways that I have taken average, good, whatever, bad deals and made them great, I don't think the average buyer who's only been doing this for, a couple of months or a couple of years understands how much power the buyer has today. So I thought maybe we'll play the game of ping pong and we'll just go back and forth between you and I to see how many great things we could think of. So, Stephen, you're the guest. What's the first thing you think of?
Well, first off, I don't know if ping pong would be the right sport if you want to play against me in any case, whether it be verbally, so you might want to pick something that's a little bit more fair to yourself because ping pong, I mean, it would just be one-sided. So maybe verbal tennis?
Okay, tennis.
Verbal
tennis.
Okay.
All right, I'm good. Thank you for that.
Otherwise, yeah, it'd be crushing defeat. Any case, the different applications of the features of the product, I think, kind of allow for, just depending upon circumstances and strategies and resources available for that deal, really allow you to get a great deal nowadays. Because just in this current increasing rate environment, it gets very difficult when trying to incorporate regular financing, with trying to get probably the cash flows, because again, rates are just higher. So what we've been able to do with the combination, with the allowance of up to a 90% CLTV or combined loan to value, you can, in some cases, structure the financing in a way to where the payment is still kind of allowed or is lowered in the blended rate between my loan and potentially, in this case, the seller financing in combination to my first, to where the property could cash flow, even at a higher leverage. Because again, ideally, what we talk about a lot on that 50-40-10 setup, if I can just lend on 50% of the property at my rate plus or blended with the seller second rate, which is normally, from what I've seen on these types of deals that I've done, 1% typically interest only, 10-year balloon. When you can combine that with my rate on the first, somewhere around 9%, you're going to get somewhere in the low sixes, mid sixes as far as a blended rate, I believe, at 90% leverage. So just calculating, doing the work, running the numbers, and seeing the cash flows, and that's one way to kind of structure a potential deal to where, hey, give maybe the seller their price, but the seller has to kind of give you your terms, and so you kind of get the best of both worlds for each other, and everybody wins. But it just takes a much more meaningful conversation, and you got to be more creative. You got to look at things from a different perspective to really understand the big picture. But just one way of getting a good deal.
Yeah, I think the 90% CLTV, the 50-40-10, as we've jokingly called it for a year and a half now, is going to be wildly successful for many folks. In fact, I think it was Cody. I might be remembering the name wrong, but I think Cody closed 3 of them, 50-40-10, or 2 of them. One of them was a 90% just straight seller financing, but I know it works. I've known people to do it. Matt the Lumberjack's done one with you, and many others have. So it's pretty cool. It's really funny when I talk to new investors or I do my boot camps, everybody thinks price, because that's it makes sense, right? We all want to get a lower price, but sometimes, to your point, it's terms, right? And I get asked all the time, why would a seller carry back 40% at 1%? The answer, generally speaking, is because you're giving them their price, and you want to hold this asset forever. So you want your terms. Right. I keep telling people, I overpaid for a single family home once by 20%. I overpaid by 20%, but I got a 30-year fixed rate loan at 1%. So I'm good. Right. I'm okay. I wasn't going to flip that house. I was going to hold it forever. So It's pretty funny. So again, you could pull on the price lever, and I strongly suggest everybody try that. That's why I will not write an offer today on a property that my general offer will be 30% below asking, but it's where I'm going to start. We'll see what happens from there. I'm only writing offers on properties on the market over 30 days. So I want to find distressed sellers. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, for
So I do
sure.
that.
Motivated. Yeah.
Motivated. And as we get into the Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're going to be increasingly motivated. So that's where I'm
Agreed.
going. I do this every year. So
Hmm.
that's one. The other thing that I think is really wild that you really brought to me is getting points, right? Having the seller kick in some points. So why don't you tell folks what that's all about?
Well, in addition to the 90% CLTV allowance, we also allow for the seller to contribute typically up to 3% um, towards the buyer's non-recurring closing costs. So they could pay an additional up to 3 points for the buyer to use to typically buy down the rate to increase the opportunity of the property to cash flow. So another lever to pull, seller to
Right.
carry the second, structure the financing so you can cash flow, and then maybe have them buy down the rate as well to lower the payment, increase cash flow as well. So a lot of different little things that you can kind of use to get a quote unquote great deal in this kind of environment. So worst they say is no, but when they say yes, when they're that motivated, it works
Yeah.
out.
So let's give some people an example of what the points might be. So let's say you're buying a $200,000 investment property. It's just that simple. It's 200 grand times 3%, which equals 6 grand. Is that simple?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So again, that's six
That's
thousand bucks that doesn't have to come out of your pocket. And if you're playing
correct.
with my deal spreadsheet, that just lowers closing costs. So again, that will help the yield. The yield gets better when the seller kicks in closing costs. So what do we got? We got lower price, we got closing costs, we got creative financing, 50, 40, 10, blended rate, sub 6, do the math.
Right. Right.
The other one that's really powerful today that I'm seeing more from my followers is getting the seller to do work in escrow. You get an inspection. There's eight
Right.
grand in termite damage. A
Mm-hmm.
year ago, you had to eat that as the buyer.
Right.
Now you're like, sorry, I got the power, Mr. Seller.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have to do that in
Right.
escrow. So
Right.
I'm seeing a lot of that these days. Are you as well?
Well, we're seeing kind of a com I guess a combination of that to some degree. The seller can do that, and or if the buyer gets it in a credit, or in other ways where maybe if there's a repair needed, and we might do what's called a cost to cure, and then
Mm,
hold that amount back,
mm.
minus out from the loan amount that
Sure.
we were going to lend, and then once the repair is done and we get proof of everything done, we just release that amount. So it's kind of like, yeah, they get paid up front, get it done, and then they get kind of made whole. So either the seller does it or the buyer, but I've seen it as well. It just depends on negotiating and who's got the negotiating power, I guess, at that
Yeah.
situation, because sometimes it's the buyer, sometimes it's the seller, but yeah, no, I've seen sellers cover that as well.
Yeah. So again, there's price, getting closing
Hmm.
costs to 3 points.
Yep.
There's loan structure. There's
Yep.
repairs, and there's
Yep.
terms. Right.
Hmm.
There are so many levers that people need to understand. And one of the things that I really encourage people to do, because again, the market is slower,
Hmm.
and that's a good thing. You can evaluate deals. You can call professionals like Stephen Dow here and present what you're thinking, because maybe in his thousands of loans, he has seen something that might be more creative than you're thinking about. So Stephen, if somebody wanted to reach out, run a loan by you, how would they do that?
Email's usually the best way to start, and then from there, if kind of provide enough information, I can just shoot a quick email. Otherwise, I'll just usually call back, or ask for a best phone number to reach you at. But typically, email me at sdao at velocity, the word mortgage, spelled out.com. In the subject line, please put the acronym ORAAT to make it past the firewall. In the body of the email, property address would be great, or at least city and state where you're looking to get financing in. Maybe a brief description what you're looking for, best phone number to reach you at. FICO score would really help as well. And typically 24, 40 hours, I'll be in touch.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
sdow at velocitymortgage.com. Later.
Yes, sir.